Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Rene Bray interview on the Behind the Laughs comedy podcast. If you have not seen part 1, we highly recommend that you go check it out. Well, anyways, we hope you enjoy this video.
Did you know your new material? You seem to me like not the type of comic that would have a down set act from beginning to end. Like if I saw you one year, the next year I would see would be completely different. Is that true?
Well, I actually have an hour and a half of a straight act.
Wow, and how many?
But
wow.
Here became the problem. I was also one of those people that would go out after the show, and I shake hands with everybody and talk to people. And I built up kind of a following in these clubs that I worked on a regular basis.
I bet you did.
So you look out in the audience and go, oh, 3 months ago, half of these people were here, and they heard this crap.
Right.
And that's when I learned to start free-forming it. I call it something else when I'm not in a show where
there's a 16-year-old.
where you might have, where there's a 16-year-old. But I used to just free-form it, and that you have to do that. I did a couple of shows where they were smaller crowds, and I knew most of the people had seen the show before. And I would just do a question and answer, and I would do an hour and a half of just question and answer.
I see. Wow. I love that. So I think the thing about being relaxed too is when you go into the audience, Rene, and you ask a question, you don't have to have a stock answer, right? You could answer them without even being funny sometimes, right? You have to just be relaxed and go with whatever's happening.
Yes, you have. That's it too. You have to be willing to risk something.
Right.
Just like in a conversation, if you and I are sitting and having a conversation, just because you're a comedian doesn't mean I expect you to be funny all the time.
I couldn't agree more.
The audience wants to feel like they know you.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And so if they get to know you, they'll like you and the laughs will come.
I tell the comics that I'm coaching, if they have decided that you're funny in the first 2 minutes that they see you, and that includes if you're going to stand out in the lobby when they walk in, sometimes they judge you there whether they think you're going to be funny or not. But in the first 2 minutes, if they've decided you're funny, 15 minutes into your set, you can turn around and go, French toast. And they'll go, oh, my God, did you hear her say French toast? That was the funniest I've ever heard anybody say that before.
And so your material was from just all your real life, correct? It seemed like you wrote based on what was happening in your life, right? People like that. I think that people like that the most.
Yeah, what else am I going to talk about? I don't know about anything else. But my crazy, screwed up life.
Right, and you could have a normal life, but if you tell your story in a certain way, it's funny because everybody's unique and everybody's a little strange. Everybody has their idiosyncrasies. That's why you're letting the audience into your crazy little world. That's what makes it great.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I think when you talk about some normal things that happen to everybody, but you show them where the funny twist to it is, and they can now laugh at their own thing. It makes life better for them. Yeah. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted to leave them wanting things a little bit better.
So when you're killing on stage, is there any better feeling than that, Rene?
No, I call it hearing the song in my head. I hear the music.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. You hear the music in your head. I love that. I told Andrew
because it's a rhythm. You're in a rhythm.
Yeah, it's just like the world is like in a perfect place at that moment for that little while, right, Rene?
That's it. It's nirvana right there. It's better than sex. It's better than anything.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, and I've told some people in this podcast, it's not a feeling that just lasts while you're up there. So for me, it would last 3 or 4 days if I have like a killer set in front of 300 or 400 people. I'd be like, wow. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so is that how long it would last for you, even being in the business so long and being the ultimate comedian?
Oh, well, for me, what would happen is I would go, okay, now tomorrow we got to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would go, what about this was different than any other show? Why did this one go better? You know, the coolest thing for me, I got to tell you where I get maybe the most jazz out of it, or whatever you want to call it, is that show that we did together in that 55 and over community.
Yep.
When I told the people, they said, oh, you got to come back. While I was on stage, you know, they go, when are you coming back? And I go, I'm not, because I'm retiring. And they go, when are you retiring? And all that stuff. And, you know, I did my final show at Winter Circle, which was right down the road from there, which I didn't realize at the time. And they go, well, when is it? Because we want to go. And I go, well, you got to get tickets in advance. People left from the show that night, drove to Winter Circle, and bought their tickets.
That's amazing.
Wow.
You were that good. See, it wasn't my imagination.
Yeah.
You were that good. I would have done the same thing.
And that amazed me, because Bill, the owner at Winter Circle, who is one of my favorite people in the world, and I love him, called me on the phone while I was driving back to Orlando, you know, and he goes, where were you tonight? And I go, I was at someplace, blah, 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 and I told him where it was. And he goes, I got people coming in at 11:30 at night to buy tickets to your final show.
If it was a little closer, I would have went. If it was a little closer, I would have went to that show.
Oh, let me tell you, we had to put you up. It was.
I don't want to get up. I just wanted to watch.
Yeah.
So what if somebody has a gig a mile from you and they're going to pay you a decent headline? You won't go do it?
You know what? I'll be happy to find you a great comedian that you love.
So you won't do it, you're saying, because, I mean, don't you miss getting that charge on stage?
Nope.
Oh, you don't miss
Really?
it? Okay.
No, and nobody's more surprised about that than me, because, you know, my son is probably my best friend. And I said to him, I know I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm scared because I haven't done anything else for 30 years.
Right.
And I said, what am I going to do? You know, but I don't want to be one of these bitter old comedians. And he goes, oh, no, you know, I'll get ready to put you in a nice home. And I said, okay, you know, whatever, just get ready, because I might lose my mind real quick. And I have not missed it at all. When I decided, I was really angry about something that made me make the final decision to quit. And I think that stuck with me, and I go, yeah, I don't want to go back to that angry thing again.
I've ran a company for 5 years, and I've dealt with a lot of very difficult comics, and it's unusual to meet someone like you in the business. It really is. There's just not a lot of people like you, like humble and amazing. Usually it's just a weird vibe I get from people. I have a good vibe for, like, nice people, and I was right about you.
See, that's what I was telling my son about you guys, and I go, meeting them, if I could do more shows with them, I would still be doing this.
So if I have a show,
I'm tired.
What about me, you, and Andrew doing a show together?
You know what? I would be happy to find somebody that can fit my time.
I thought I was going to get it there, Andrew.
I thought
I was going to. I'm afraid to ask anyone to do anything with me. Everybody, who is the best comic in South Florida, in your opinion?
Mike Rivera and I have been friends for probably 25 years, as well as we had traveled the road together and worked a lot of shows together. I love Mike Rivera. I love Frankie Paul. And unfortunately, one of my favorite comedians of all time just passed away. We hadn't got to work together for a long time, but a guy named Vic Henley. Did you know Vic?
You know, those three names I don't know. I know a lot of New York, Long Island guys. I didn't know any of those three guys.
Well, Vic Henley has been in New York. He was there for a long time, but he's a Southern comic. But he was funny as all get out, but he wouldn't be able to fly now. Mike Rivera is out of Tampa. Some of the funniest guys in the world. People will never know their name unless they go out to a comedy club.
I know. So what's your most memorable comedy story, whether it be a bomb or just something really unusual that, you know, 30 years later kind of sticks in your head a lot still? Do you have one?
I have a lot of ones. Some of them I'm not ever going to tell. But I can tell you one of the best bomb stories I have.
Yes, I love bomb
stories.
Know how I love them.
Yeah, you remember those a lot more
Yes,
than
you
you
do.
remember the really
It's true.
good ones. Okay, so the number one bomb story happened probably 3 years ago, and
Oh, wow.
you talked about how chill I am.
Yes.
If I start to get nervous, I go. It's called that. I call it the kind of the spidey sense.
Yes, spider.
Something isn't right here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I was hired to do a Christmas party for this huge law firm, and it's in this beautiful hotel in Orlando. They are paying me a ton of money. Okay, I'm happy with that. The guy I talked to on the phone, I emphasized to him, don't worry, I know this is a corporate event and I understand that you want to clean. And he goes, no, we're divorce attorneys. Get down and dirty. Now, they say that. I know after my years of experience, they don't know what that means to me. And no, that's not what they want.
Right.
No, trust me. I want to go, yeah, you think your little divorce attorneys can handle down and dirty? No, they can't. So, yes, we're going to go back to being real clean. So I get there that night, and he introduces me to his partner, okay? His partner could not be more polar opposite than the guy I had been talking to. And he goes, I hope you're going to be clean, and I hope this is going to be very funny. And he said, I hope you don't plan to make fun of anybody.
Oh, that was a mistake.
Oh, well, okay. Now they go, would you like to have some appetizers? No, thanks, because it's not going to stay down. Because now my stomach's in that mode, right?
Yeah, well, so that's nerves. So that's nerves that you said you don't have.
I'm gonna try to please both of these people. Let's see how it goes. So they take me into the ballroom where we're going to do this. And the stage is up way high, and they are real far away. And they go, we're going to do the awards, and then we're going to put you up. There's good news. So they do the awards, and, of course, they go, here's the one, and they're giving this guy an award for something, and it involves death and destruction. And, you know, it's one of those where half the audience is crying, and they go, and here we got a special treat, your comedian, Rene Bray.
Oh, right after the death story. Great.
Yeah, and here's good news. Here we go. So I go up and I go, hi, you know, and they're divorce attorneys, so I do my divorce material. We're doing pretty good. Everything seems happy. I see them starting to put the buffet out in the back.
Boy.
Okay, and I was contracted to do 45 minutes, and I'm one of these law and order type people. If you tell me to do 45 minutes, I will stand up there. I don't care. All of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a joke, and partner number one now has walked up to the edge of this scaffolding they have me hanging on, as far away from the crowd as possible, and he goes, hey, and I go, yeah? And he goes, can you make an announcement and tell them it's okay to go ahead and fill their plate while you're doing this?
That's a mistake.
I go, sure, no problem. All of a sudden, the nerves stopped because I thought to myself, they don't care about this comedy show. I don't need to care about this comedy show that much. I'm going to do the best job I can, and that has to be good enough. That has to be good enough. And I did what I could do. And then I did one joke about something that has never let me down. And 3 women in the front row went, and I go, I'm getting out of here. And I think I did 42 minutes. And they were still walking through the buffet line. And I just went, this sucks. All right.
Well, you were getting, so it was the make a buffet. In the middle of your set, you had somebody interrupt you to say, make a buffet announcement that the food is ready.
In the middle of a joke.
That's I don't know what I would have done if somebody did that to me. I don't know what I would have done.
And I thought, I looked at him and I go, do you interrupt the judge in the middle of your cases?
Is that what you told him?
And
yeah, that's a great joke.
And he laughed. But he laughed because he was the guy who wanted to be picked on, and his partner didn't want him to be picked on. And so, you know, it was just one of those crazy things. But I have another that's probably one of my most memorable nights because it was one of those where I learned something.
Yeah, let's hear it.
There was a guy named, and you probably never got to meet him because he sold his club and retired, but his name is Joe Galanis, and he used to own the Laugh-In Comedy Cafe in Fort Myers. And I always loved and respected Joe. And he kept telling me, and this has been about 10 years ago, you need to do the corporate work because that's where the money is. And I go, oh, they want that to be clean. I can't work clean. He goes, yes, you can. You just got to change a few words around. That's all you got to do, blah, 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 blah. And I kept saying, no, I can't do it. So he calls me and he said, hey, look, one of the country clubs here in town wants to do a comedy night. And I told him about you. And I go, uh-huh. And he said, it pays really good money. Okay, now you have my attention. And he said, here's the deal. They want it kind of PG. I told them about your act, and they said, just don't use the F word.
The F-bomb.
And I have all the synonyms for the F word. I have all the synonyms. So you just change it to frickin'.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, that's all you do. And he goes, get this. The show is at 6:30. You'll be out of there by 8 o'clock. You can be back in Orlando by midnight. And I'm like, I'm in. I go, okay, I can do that. So next thing I know, I pull up to the country club. I'm walking up the steps, and this girl comes running out. She's white as a ghost. I thought I was going to have to perform CPR on somebody or something the way she looked. I mean, she literally looked that panicked. And she said, I know you're Rene because I've seen your picture. And I said, yeah, I'm Rene. And she introduced herself. And she said, we've had some problems this week I need to talk to you about. And I said, okay. So we go in and we sit down, and she said, look, the directors have been in and out. We've never done comedy here before, and they're scared to death that this is going to go bad.
Oh, boy.
So they sat down a bunch of guidelines for you.
Oh, great.
They sat down, no alcohol or drug material. Do not pick on any group of people. No sexual innuendo.
Oh, okay.
And I go, okay. And I said, so I can say hello and goodbye.
You got like 2 minutes left of material. That leaves me with 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Great.
And she looks at me and she goes, oh my God, we can't do this, can we? We just can't do this. And I said, look, calm down. Here's the deal. I'm here. We're going to do this. And I said, if you'll be flexible with me, because I was supposed to do an hour. I said, I'm not sure I can fit these guidelines for an hour. I said, I'm really not. But I said, I can, if you won't hold me to an hour, I'll do at least 45 minutes. Some of it may be stupid and not all that funny, but I'll cover the time. And I promise you, I won't offend anybody. And besides that, you look like a bright, intelligent girl. You can probably get another job on Monday. So let's just go with it. And she goes, oh, my God. She goes, okay, we'll give it a try. And she takes me out and sits me down at the bar. Well, the bartender looks up and he goes, oh, my God, I've seen you at Laugh-In. And then he looks at the executive director and goes, she's our comic for tonight. And he's laughing. He goes, I just saw you. This is going to be great. These people are going to die. And I go, it's okay. I'm not going to do that show. And there was another comic with me because I was going to take him over to introduce him to Joe because he wanted to work for Laugh-In. So he's blabbing in my ear. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? And I'm like, shut up. I need to think about it because I have no idea, you know. And it just so happened that this was a charity kind of thing. They were raising money for something. And so the guy in charge of the charity comes up and he says, before the real comedy show starts, which is always a nightmare to hear, we're going to do a joke contest.
Oh, God.
But please, no foul language. Because if you say a bad word, you have to put $1 in the fishbowl over here as a donation to the charity.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh my God.
So I look at the other comic, and this executive director taken my purse and put it back in the office. So I didn't have access to my purse. So I look at the other comic and I go, give me $10. And he goes, why? And I go, just give me $10. And he didn't have it. I looked at the bartender. I go, give me $10 out of the drawer. I'll give it back to you after the show. I promise. And so he hands me the $10. And after the joke contest, they introduced me. And of course, when somebody doesn't know how to introduce you, they pretty much read your website.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, my God, now they really think I'm going to be funny, and I don't know how funny I'm going to be. But I walked up and I said, I watched the joke contest, very good. I see a couple of contributions were made to the kids organization. And I said, am I right in understanding that it's $1 if you use any foul language? And the guy said yes. And I go, okay, here is my $10. I'm going to put that in now. And at the end of the show, let me know how much more.
That's great. I love that. That's a great opening line, Rene. I love that opening line.
And
did it get a laugh?
I never used to, they roar.
Oh yeah, it's a great line.
And I went, but I go, oh my God, that worked. Okay. So you just go, well, that's working. All right. I never said a bad word. I did an hour and 15 minutes. And here's how I know it went well, and I learned a lot, because the other comic, who was also kind of I'm trying to think of how I can describe him, kind of a pain in the butt, and he wasn't somebody that would really give you compliments because he thought he was God's gift to comedy. He goes, oh my God, I feel like I just watched a master class on how to do a clean show. And I said, really? And he said, yes. And he said, after about your first 2 minutes, he said, I recorded it for you because he said, I think you should have this. And the lady after the show calls Joe at the comedy club. And Joe said when he heard her message, all he could do was think, oh, God, what did she do?
Well, yeah, it was cool.
What did she do? And he said the lady was thrilled. He called me on the way home, and he goes, oh, my God, she can't believe you did that. And I go, Joe, I can't believe I did it. And I said, thank you. You just put me en route to my new undertaking, which is all corporate comedy.
So that was your start into corporate comedy.
Yeah, that's how I knew I could work clean.
And you felt comfortable at that point to say, hey, it's fine. I'll just substitute this for that, and that's a great story.
You just study it a little bit and figure out what's going to be funny to them. What's funny to them is their everyday life. Learn their website.
Yeah, I find
I probably know more about some of these companies than some of their employees do when I go in to do a show.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah, I do got one quick question for you. So,
sure.
You've been doing comedy for a long time. Looking back at your career, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yes. Somewhere in the middle, all my life, I'm a very, and I know when people hear this, they're going to go, that's the biggest crap that she's ever said. But that's because people know the character that I am, basically not the real person that I am. I'm a very passive person. I don't like confrontation or anything like that. So I never argued to get more money. I never argued to get a better position. I would just always say, okay. I wish in the middle of my career I would have learned to stand up for myself more and go, no, I'm not driving 800 miles to do you a favor and do a show for $125.
Wow.
Because I was a single mom and supporting my kids, it was a long, long time before I ever said no to a gig.
Really?
Yeah, so
because I had to work.
Real full-time comics say yes to everything, right, Rene? They just say yes when someone asks them to do something.
Yes.
There's no no's. There's just yes.
Yes. Yeah, you have to. And especially when you got 3 kids at home. Honest to goodness, because my kids were 5, 7, and 9 when I started doing comedy. And if I was home on a weekend, one time my son looked at me, and he's the youngest one, and he would go, aren't you going to go to work this week? And I go, no, I don't have any work this week. And he said, are we going to be able to eat next week?
Wow.
And I go, we're gonna see how that works out. But bookers used to call my house, and I can remember at one point my oldest daughter was 12, and I was out on the road, and this booker called, and she took the message and everything, and told him where he could reach me, what hotel I was staying at. This was before the age of cell phones, and he called the hotel, and he goes, "Your secretary took the message. Didn't she leave the message for you at the hotel?" And I go, "Secretary?" And he goes, "Yes." And I go, "That wasn't a secretary. That's my kid answering my own phone." You idiot.
For $80 a gig, you think I have a secretary? I mean, the pay now is worse than ever, Rene. I have a friend who goes to Dangerfields in Manhattan on Mondays. They pay him $25 for a set. Do you believe this?
Yeah, I believe it, and here's why. My first job at Sobel's agency was they were booking the comics. They would hand me the comics that they booked that week, and my job was to fill out the paperwork and mail it to them. They would get an itinerary, and on that itinerary is here's the shows you're doing, here's the club, here's the hotel, and here's how much money you're making. Comedians headlining back in 1988 when I started were making anywhere between $1,500 and $2,200 for 8 or 9 shows a week.
Well, that's a decent.
That was the headliner money.
What are they getting paid now? I mean, I don't do clubs. What are they paying them now? Nothing? $100?
Oh, sometimes you might make $200 a show.
That is just unbelievable. What happened to the pay?
Disgrace.
They don't know about inflation.
Here's what's happened. Because egos with not so great comics, they started saying to club owners, open micers would say, "Oh, well, I'll come in and do that for free for you."
Absolutely.
And now features are usually open micers. It should not be on a professional stage. But places, big comedy clubs, I don't want to mention any names, the Improv, are willing to put guys, they bring in a big dollar headliner and they go, "We'll pay the other 2 chump change." And so they get local guys who aren't really comics. They've got 3 other jobs and show up for open mic, but they got 10 minutes that maybe can pass in front of a big name act. And now they think, and then they go around going, I'm a feature. You know what was fun for me? And I did this one time in Pensacola.
What?
Everybody, anytime you go into a club, every time I would go in and a comic that I didn't know, and I knew most of the comics because working for Sobel for 6 or 7 months, all the comics knew I worked for Sobel at Sobel's office, so I met them coming in and out of there answering the phone. But when I would meet a new one, for some reason, every feature always feels like that was this week off, so I took the feature slot. So I got tired of hearing that because I'm like, you know what? I call me the janitor. Just don't screw with my money on Saturday night when you got to pay me. I don't care. So this guy came in, and he was one of those guys. I could tell he was just had one of those attitudes. And when they think they're a headliner and they're trying to prove something to you, they do things like instead of doing 30 minutes, they'll do 45 minutes in front of you and try to screw you up that way because they're trying to prove they're a headliner. So I thought, let's nip this in the bud. And I had a comic that was with me, and she was coming along. She was just starting doing comedy, and I was getting her to MC the shows for experience. So I said, watch this. I go, when he comes back, I got a plan. And she's like, oh, this is going to be great. So when he comes back in, I said, so you normally headline? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, I have an idea then. Let's do this Canadian style. And he goes, what's Canadian style? I said, well, in Canada, they do it differently. The headliner goes up as the MC and starts the show. Then they just do a few minutes to get the show started. Then they bring up the MC, and the MC does their time. And then the headliner comes back up and introduces the feature. You do your 30 minutes, and then I'll come back up, and I'll close with 30 minutes. How does that sound to you? And he goes, that would be awesome.
She never let him back on stage, Andrew. No. I know where this is going.
I looked at the girl that was with me, and I go, he is going to be reevaluating his life. Because I said, I'm thinking about doing the last 30 minutes. I'm not even going to do the setups. I'm just going to do the punchlines to the joke. And I go, because I guarantee you he's headlined a couple of crappy bar shows or closed out open mic nights. He's never headlined in his life. He's going to have a hard time following the 10 minutes I do in front of him. And they won't remember his name when we finish at the end. And I said, I want you to know you normally don't do this to a comic, but I feel like he needs to be taught a lesson. And I was apparently mad at somebody, and I was going to take it out on him.
Yes, you did. But it was deserved on his part, though.
Yeah.
It should happen a little more,
I
actually.
just got tired of hearing it because it was every week. I normally headline, but I took this teacher spot.
I normally...
Oh, okay. So it became a joke around the circuit. People would go, if she asks you about doing Canadian style, you don't want to do it. He came up to me after the show, and he just looked at me, and he goes, man, I had never heard of you, so I didn't know you were going to be that good. Why don't we just go back to the other way tomorrow night? And I go, well, I don't want to insult you because, you normally headline. And I said, if you want to close out the show, I'll be happy to do the feature slot. And he goes, oh, no, I'm good with featuring. I go, okay.
See, I made it. I made a good decision there, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to close with me? And you were like, oh, I don't care. I was like, okay, you could close. I could tell. See, I know.
Yeah, but see, I wouldn't have burned you like that.
No,
I would not have, because you were so nice.
No, but if you said to me, I'm a headliner, I should be closing the show. I don't know why there's two headliners. I actually would think to myself, I'm probably better than you, because I would never say that. I find the really good comics don't talk like that. Is that true?
Yes, I totally believe that. And that's like when you said, I don't know which one of us was supposed to close. And in reality, I didn't know which one of us was supposed to close. Yeah. And I don't care who's closed.
But your experience, you have 100,000 more shows than I have. Like, you should have been closing, and I'm glad that I let you close because no one could really follow you.
Well, part of that is because I'm a female comedian. A lot of female comics go, oh, I hate it because we've been, downtrodden in this business. In some ways, yes. But I'm telling you, if you're a good female and you can headline and not just do sex jokes, I mean, headlining is a lot more than just doing 45 minutes. There's a lot more to it. But if you can be a good headliner, you can go really far in this business. And we're harder to follow because I can say things to the audience that you can't say to them.
Oh, the women you mean?
And get away with it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you as a man can't say some of the stuff that I say and get away with it.
Well, I work clean. I work clean. That's the way I kind of started, and that's the way I just work clean. I keep it clean. I get a lot more gigs that way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And my corporate thing, that's why all these guys, too, want to put up every video they've ever done on YouTube. Well, and I'm like, if you want to work corporate, get that crap off of there. Because as soon as they hear you doing a club show where you say the F word once, they're scared to death to have you. I tell the comics that I'm coaching right now and working with, I say to them, get out the newspaper every day, read an article, and write 5 jokes for that. You're never going to use that joke. They're not for anything, but they train your mind to start thinking in a funny manner. And when your mind is a muscle. So you get that muscle memory of going, you hear something and automatically it's funny. And then you can be you up there and be funny.
This went by so fast with that hour and a half. I got to figure out how to cut this down now. Under an hour, which I don't know how because it's all good. I like to keep them under an hour.
Well, I'm sorry because it's funny because when you're retired, I don't talk to anybody anymore. And it's funny because I said I wouldn't do anything, and then these guys came to me and they said they wanted me to coach. And one of the agents that I'm still talk to all the time, and I love him, he goes, I'm going to send a couple of people to you, but you're not doing this for free. And he goes, you're going to charge them because, for one thing, they value it more. And so that's what I'm doing now.
It's perfect for you.
I coach some people. I have them tape their sets. Of course, this coronavirus stuff actually has given us more time to work on things.
Yep. And that's...
But I have them record their sets, and then we do it on Zoom or, whatever I can figure. Whatever my son can hook up for me that day, because I don't do electronic, so that I can talk to them directly and coach them. And I'm also starting to book some things because I also found out that I know bookers need to make money and it's important, but when I'm making $200 on a gig and the booker is making $800, there's a problem.
Yeah, there's a problem there.
What's funny is, believe it or not, I was the shyest, quietest kid in my high school. People don't even remember me ever saying anything, and I was also very religious. I was very religious. And the reason I sent you that stuff about the stuff from my speaker's website, when my daughter was sexually assaulted, the guy got out of jail and went to work at Discovery Zone. And I immediately called the news media, and they said, we're sending a truck. Can you speak to them?
You did.
That's when I realized God had a plan for me all along, because I never understood why I went into comedy.
Oh.
And I go, I said, well played, God. Well played. Because that TV crew showed up. I didn't take a breath. I was able to do it. News, when you're doing news interviews, they have to be short and sweet, just like our bit. And the interviewer looked at me and he goes, have you done a lot of these? I go, no, I've never been on TV before. And he goes, oh my gosh, this is great. And I mean, they were sending people over from Japan. I did with the BBC. I interviewed with everybody. And all I could say was, well played, God. Well played. You just led me to something, and I went with it, and now I see where we are.
Right. So when you sent me that whole thing, in my mind, I didn't tie it together with comedy, but the way you just tied it together now makes perfect sense. Is what you're saying is comedy gave you your voice, where you could become an activist for something you believe in, and I could totally see that with everyone who does comedy.
And the funny thing is I talk about that on stage a lot, because I did the whole chemical castration thing. I lobbied that legislation, and I talk about it, castration, and I had the bumper stickers that said, touch their butts, lose your nuts.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm working with these senators, and they go, that's very funny. And they go, we'd like to come out and see your little comedy skit thing. I'd be like, no, I don't need senators coming out to the show.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, maybe not.
But doing comedy made me not afraid of that TV camera.
I don't think you're afraid of anything at this point, except Price Club, Costco. That's the only thing you're afraid of at this point.
Oh, Costco. And I tell you, the Walmart neighborhood markets, never again. I thought that was a good idea. That was not a good idea. I heard Jason talk about the Zoom shows.
Yes.
That is going to single-handedly ruin comedy.
It's crazy.
I'll tell you right now, because anybody that watches that is never going to go out to a comedy club, because they're going to think live comedy is like that.
It's just not the same vibe at all. It's just awful. So I'm on Gig Salad and Gig Master. I turned down at least half the things that are brought to me. I'm just like, that's not going to be fun. I'm not going to look forward to that.
Yeah, I was on Gig Salad and Gig Master, and that's where I got that attorney gig. Jason sent me to a house party one time, but Jason was smart because he didn't tell me it was a house party.
Oh.
He just goes, I've got a gig for you. It pays this amount of money, and it's in Orlando, and it's on this date. Can you do it? I said, yeah. And I kept saying, what's the gig? Tell me the gig. What's the gig? And then he sends me there, and thank God it was in a nice neighborhood.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot Jason booked you too. Yeah, so I told Jason no house parties for me. I said, don't even send me the don't even include me. I won't do a house party. I don't care.
But you asked for funny stories over 30 years. One guy sent me, you're just getting the address and the phone number and what time you're supposed to be there and how much you're to be paid.
Right.
And I walk in to do the show, and it's the feature and I are together, and we're sitting at the bar talking and everything. We look around and we go, man, there's a lot of men in here. It's a gay bar.
Oh, my
Gee,
God.
that might have been relevant information
Yeah.
at the beginning of it.
Yeah, see, that's why. That's
I
something I
worked
would
a
like to
strip
know.
club.
That's something, but you're so good. I don't know if it matters where you are. You're just unflappable.
Well, doing those gigs, see, going anywhere, doing anything, anytime, made me where I'm like, I don't care.
I know. No, I do understand that, but I still, I have some pressure with my financial business and real estate. Like, I don't want to have pressure at the comedy show. There's enough of it already.
Right.
I don't need.
Right. And no, and you shouldn't have to, and especially working as clean as you do.
So
That's not right because that isn't going to go. But I've actually worked strip clubs where the dancers have 8 minutes each, and there were 12 of them. So they each do their 8 minutes each, and then they would throw me on the stage and go, "Well, the dancers are changing for their next set. We need you to do 20 minutes."
That is unbelievable.
And
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God. And I was just like shocked, and I didn't quite know what to do. So I walked up and I always kick my shoes off when I'm working because I always wore high heels and dressed up. And I said, you'll recognize me because I have my top on and my shoes off.
That's right. The exact opposite of the dancers.
And they laughed at that, and the guys would stay and watch it. And you just go, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's working. And they would go, good, because we're going to do it all again and after the dancers. And you would go, I can't believe they send me here and don't tell me what it is. Because if they told me what it was, they knew I would say, I can't do that.
So you're our longest phone call so far because you're that interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, you guys are fun to talk to, too. Because I know you appreciate the work and the business.
Yeah, and I think peeling back the curtain a little bit is eye-opening for me too, as I didn't have a traditional comedy career. I never worked in comedy clubs. I kind of had this little background Christian thing, and I kind of came at it from a different angle. So I'm learning a lot. I think it's fascinating, everybody's journey. It's just amazing.
I was thinking about Quentin, and then on October 4th, my son-in-law, and mind you, my daughter had just gotten married the year before. She didn't even get to celebrate her second wedding anniversary. My son-in-law was killed in a farming accident in Kentucky.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was a horrible one. And this is the same kid that was sexually assaulted. Oh. This is the daughter that, God love her. Her life has not been easy, but she's positive and she's a hard worker. But there was something about my daughter calling me and saying, Mom, Greg's dead. She found him. He'd been in the field for 8 hours. It was just bad. I didn't have any gigs that weekend, thank goodness, because this was on a Thursday. On Friday, I'm still sobbing and can't even gather my breath, hardly. I'm figuring out how I'm going to get and my son was out of town. He had just left right before she called me to go to Los Angeles for his annual convention for his job. So I'm figuring out how I'm going to get people to watch the dogs, and I'm headed for Louisville to be with my daughter. And I realized the following Saturday, so this is 8 days away, I'm supposed to work at this shitty club in Savannah, Georgia. It's run by a guy named Tom Parrish, who is an idiot. I hadn't worked for him for 6 years. He had called me and begged me, and I had the weekend open. And he said, look, I'll give you part of the door plus $200. And then a couple of weeks later, he calls me back and says, we can't get you a hotel room. And I wanted to cancel then, but I wasn't one to cancel. So anyway, this had been on the books for about 3 or 4 months. And I go, I'm not coming back from Louisville to do his shitty show, where I might only make $200. And I don't have a hotel room.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm driving 10 hours.
That's crazy.
No, I'm not. So I pull myself together enough to call him on the phone. And he answers and he goes, well, hello, Rene Bray. And I said, Tom, I
can't do it.
I can't. I said, my son-in-law was killed in a tragic accident.
He didn't care at all.
Yesterday.
He didn't care one bit.
And he goes, here's our exact conversation. And I go, I'm going to Louisville and I don't know when I'm coming back. And he goes, but I have you in all the advertisement. I go, I don't care. And he said, but you're all over the website. People have been calling to see you. And I said, I don't care. And he goes, well, what am I going to do? And I go, I don't care. And now, mind you, he does one show a month. This isn't a guy that's doing weekly shows. He does one show a month. And he goes, well, can you at least help find me a replacement? And I said, go on my Facebook page and look at my friends. 98% of them are comedians. And I said, off the top of my head, Steve Eric and Mike Rivera. Talk to them first. And he goes, well, it really needs to be a woman. And I go, I don't care. And by this point, I'm now crying again.
Unbelievable.
And I can't breathe, and I'm sobbing. And I hung up the phone. He text messaged me, and I have all of them because I'm also a bitter bitch. I can be as nice as pie, but I can also turn the other way. And I saved every one of those. He sent me 48 text messages that day.
Are you kidding me?
Asking me about people. No,
48?
asking me about people. And he never once said, I'm sorry about your loss. Do you need anything? Now, here's the difference in this. This crappy little bar in Lakeland called Winter Circle with the guy named Bill that I told you I love, and where I did my final show, heard from one of the other comics who Tom actually calls and he goes, look, Rene Bray fucking canceled on me at the last minute. It's 8 days, dude. 8 days away.
It's plenty of time.
And I need a comic. And they go, well, why did Rene cancel? She didn't cancel stuff. And he goes, well, somebody died in her family.
Oh,
well, this comic calls Bill, because he knows Bill and I are close. Bill called me on the phone, and I answered the phone. And he goes, look, you don't have to say anything. I heard what happened. He goes, I don't know who or what happened exactly, but I know somebody died in your family. And I said, yes, my son-in-law. And he goes, where? And I said, Louisville. And he said, do you need one of us to drive you there? Do you need any money? Do you need somebody to come and stay with you? Where is your son? What can I do for you? That's why I did my last show there, because I knew it would be a sold-out show. I knew people would drink and eat like crazy, and I wanted Bill to finally make a shitload full of money off of his comedy night. And you know what the idiot did? He took twice the money at the door. He charged double for the ticket. It was sold out. And at the end of the show, he walks up and hands me all the money from the door.
Yeah, so there are some good people, but unfortunately, Rene, in my experience, not very many. In this,
you're absolutely correct. And there are agents taking 80% of the check. I will tell you, when I book something, I take 20%.
Oh, I don't care what my agent takes. I don't really care. As long as it's enough for me to get out of the house with Andrew, I don't really care what they take, because I wouldn't have it otherwise.
Yeah, I don't mind him making money, but when I found out one guy got $1,000 for a gig and he paid me $200 for it, and I originally said no. I said I can't go to Fort Myers from Orlando for $200, and he goes, look, these people don't pay a lot of money. I need to have a good comedian in there. He goes, I will make this up to you. They never make it up to you. They forget that.
No, I don't go across the state for less than $500. Not that I'm that good, but I just don't want to make the trip. It's not worth it.
No, and you are that good, and you and Andrew, you very much are. But I'm going to tell you, the funny thing was, see, you always find out stuff, because the lady said to me, she said, you were well worth what I paid. And I said, oh, I hope so, but I said, I have no idea what you pay. She said, you were well worth $1,000. You'd have been worth a whole lot more.
That's unbelievable.
So,
yeah,
so when I go over to get my check from the guy, he goes, oh, I'm glad you were able to do this. I said, yeah, me too. Especially, I said, I slept with a lot of guys that lied to me, and apparently I'm working with them too. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, what I mean is, you might as well said, I'll call you tomorrow. It's the same thing. I said, you were paid $1,000 for this gig. You're taking $800.
That's a crime.
I said, so don't ask me to do anything for you again.
Yeah, that's just a crime. I can't believe that he would take that much.
People go, why are you quitting? You're so good. Why are you quitting?
Right.
Because you don't know what I went through to get here tonight.
Right, and that story was just awful. I could have seen myself quitting under similar circumstances, because it's such a cutthroat, lousy business. It's
and I
just
went there.
awful.
This is the way comedy is. I don't need this. My family doesn't need it.
That's right.
And as soon as I came back from being with my daughter and everything, I posted that I would be retiring in June because I would have done exactly 30 years. And Bill said, I would like to do your final show. And I go, you got it.
Oh, I'm sorry we didn't go now. I wish I
Yeah,
would have
me
went now.
too.
If I would have done this interview before,
Oh,
I would have wished I would have went to that show.
I had people showing up. I had a guy show up that was a waiter in a club I had worked. I was emceeing 30 years ago. He has since the show was in Florida. He had since moved to Texas, but we had reconnected on Facebook, and he flew in and surprised me. I hadn't seen him in 30 years.
That's
And he came to the
unbelievable.
show.
That's nice. You're a big hit, Rene. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon for something.
You too, and thanks for spending so much
So
time
much
with
fun.
me, you guys.
So
You guys
much
are
good.
angels.
Looking
is
forward
awesome.
to
Thanks
seeing you
for,
soon. God
coming
bless.
on.
Take care of yourself.
All right, you guys too. I hope they talk to you soon. Bye
Talk to
bye.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.